You should give class. Yeah, can you like when you go live, can you zoom in? I don't want anything. Okay, cool, great, wonderful. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Śrīla Prabhupada. Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Śrīla Prabhupada ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakaacharya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakaacharya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur ki प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा धाम की नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जगन्नाथपुरी क्षेत्र धाम की गंगामय यमुना माई की तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की सामवेद भक्त वृंद की गौ प्रेमानंदे. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. We don't have a TV that works, right? Can't believe it. You guys gonna pull it up on your phones or are we? That's it? Okay. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Ashtaprayeshva Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So, welcome all to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We'll be reading from the fourth canto, second chapter, 19th verse. And the chapter is titled, does anyone know what the chapter is titled? Very good. Yes. So, niṣidhyamānaḥ sadasya-mukhyair dakṣo giritrāya visṛjya śāpam tasmād viniṣkramya vivṛddha-manyur jagāma kauravya nijam niketanam niṣidhyamānaḥ sadasya-mukhyair niṣidhyamānaḥ sadasya-mukhyair dakṣo giritrāya visṛjya śāpam dakṣo giritrāya visṛjya śāpam tasmād viniṣkramya vivṛddha-manyur tasmād viniṣkramya vivṛddha-manyur jagāma kauravya nijam niketanam jagāma kauravya nijam niketanam niṣidhyamānaḥ sadasya-mukhyair dakṣo giritrāya visṛjya śāpam tasmād viniṣkramya vivṛddha-manyur jagāma kauravya nijam niketanam niṣidhyamānaḥ sadasya-mukhyair dakṣo giritrāya visṛjya śāpam tasmād viniṣkramya vivṛddha-manyur jagāma kauravya nijam niketanam. Please chant. Niṣidhyamānaḥ sadasya-mukhyair tasmād viniṣkramya vivṛddha-manyur jagāma kauravya nijam niketanam. Niṣidhyamānaḥ sadasya-mukhyair dakṣo giritrāya visṛjya śāpam tasmād viniṣkramya vivṛddha-manyur jagāma kauravya nijam niketanam. Niṣidhyamānaḥ sadasya-mukhyair dakṣo giritrāya visṛjya śāpam tasmād viniṣkramya vivṛddha-manyur jagāma kauravya nijam niketanam. Niṣidhyamānaḥ sadasya-mukhyair dakṣo giritrāya visṛjya śāpam tasmād viniṣkramya vivṛddha-manyur jagāma kauravya nijam niketanam. Niṣidhyamānaḥ, being requested not to, saha, he, dakṣa, sadasya-mukhyair, by the members of the sacrifice, dakṣaḥ, dakṣa, giritrāya, to Shiva, visṛjya, giving, śāpam, a curse, tasmāt, from that place, viniṣkramya, going out, vivṛddha-manyuḥ, being exceedingly angry, jagāma, went, kauravya, O Vidura, nijam, to his own, niketanam, home. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, in spite of the requests of all the members of the sacrificial assembly, Dakṣa, in great anger, cursed Lord Śiva and then left the assembly and went back to his home. Once again, Maitreya continued, please repeat. Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, in spite of the requests of all the members of the sacrificial assembly, Dakṣa, in great anger, cursed Lord Śiva and then left the assembly and went back to his home. Purport. Anger is so detrimental that even a great personality like Dakṣa, out of anger, left the arena where Brahma was presiding, and all the great sages and pious and saintly persons were assembled. All of them requested him not to leave, but, infuriated, he left, thinking that the auspicious place was not fit for him. Puffed up by his exalted position, he thought that no one was greater than he in argument. It appears that all the members of the assembly, including Lord Brahmā, requested him not to be angry and leave their company, but in spite of all these requests, he left. That is the effect of cruel anger. In Bhagavad-gītā, therefore, it is advised that one who desires to make tangible advancement in spiritual consciousness must avoid three things: lust, anger, and the mode of passion. Actually, we can see that lust, anger, and passion make a man crazy, even though he be as great as Dakṣa. The very name Dakṣa suggests that he was an expert in all material activities, but still, because of his aversion towards such a saintly personality as Shiva, he was attacked by these three enemies: anger, lust, and passion. Lord Chaitanya therefore advised that one be very careful not to offend Vaishnavas. He compared offenses toward a Vaishnava to a mad elephant. As a mad elephant can do anything horrible, so when a person offends a Vaishnava, he can perform any abominable action. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitang Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padang Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhang Vitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhaivacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome all to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Thank you all for assembling. Before I start speaking on this verse, I would like to get the blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas here, seniors and juniors and peers. So please, before I start speaking, give me your blessings so that, thank you, I may speak everything in the line of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, especially to what Prabhupada has said in his purport. So, as we've been reading from the beginning of this chapter, and especially in the last few verses, we can see that Prajapati Dakṣa has grossly misunderstood his position, and he's also misunderstood Lord Śiva's position, as well as the position of all the assembled great personalities such as Lord Brahmā, the sages, Lord Śiva, and I'm pretty sure there were some Manus. Swayambhuva Manu was also there, although it's not explicitly mentioned. But nonetheless, he misunderstood everyone's position as to being senior than him or more elevated than him. Although he was born of Lord Brahmā, because of his service or his role, the other personalities present there were more senior to him. So he's supposed to offer them his respects at all times. But due to his pride and false ego and misunderstanding of his position in society, he decided to get upset at Lord Śiva and ended up cursing Lord Shiva and further leaving the assembly or sacrifice, and in a very dramatic manner. And so this led to him, the cause of this was because of his anger, his lust, and in the Purport, Prabhupada says passion, but in Bhagavad-gītā in 2.62 and 63, we see that Prabhupada says it's, no, this is the 16th chapter, sorry. There's a verse in the 16th chapter that talks about the three gateways of hell. And in that, Prabhupada writes, lust, anger, and greed. So greed is a byproduct of the mode of passion. It comes from the mode of passion. So in this verse, Prabhupada uses the word passion, mode of passion, instead of greed, because he wants to explain the overall reason why the greed of dakṣa arises. Anyway, so first we can see that this verse talks about many different things, so I'll break it down into little sections. And the first section talks about Daksha's condition, how extreme anger has distorted his personality. So in the Vedic scriptures or in the Vedic teachings, it is said numerous times and in numerous places that anger is like a fire that consumes everything. It's completely destructive and it's insatiable. That means no matter what you do, at no point can you fulfill it. You can try everything that you can in your capacity to do, but at the end, if you can't control your anger, it will completely consume you and destroy you. And the scriptures also say that anger doesn't just affect the mind; it also warps the entire person to the core. It really makes him someone different, whether it be for a moment, or whether it be for extended periods of time, or whether it be repetitive times. And same way in this verse, we can see that Daksha's entire personality has been warped or deformed by his anger. And it's not an anger that is just, it's a blind anger. So of course there's different kinds of anger. I'm sure you guys, we all experience it in different parts of our lives, where sometimes something very serious makes us angry, or sometimes something so minuscule will make us angry, and sometimes we're just angry for no reason. So like this, Daksha was blinded by rage and by anger, and it completely took him out of reality of what was happening, and completely distorted his understanding of who he was. And Daksha, as a Prajapati, he's supposed to have refined qualities. He's like the progenitor of the universe. He's supposed to create all this increased population in the entire universe, and he's not really leading by example as a leader and as an expert sacrificer, and because he's been eclipsed by rage and because he can't see past that anger. So like this, from this few verses prior to this and the few verses after this, we can, as devotees, we have to take the lesson that whenever we feel anger rising within us, and this verse is very applicable to me. I'm speaking on this verse on anger, so I can relate to it very much. And from personal experience, I've seen numerous times that anger is not something that it cannot be controlled. It can be controlled, and there's symptoms that you can see it evolving within you. So from the very beginning itself, it should be curbed, and this is also what it's said in the Gita. And because if one doesn't curb it in the beginning, then it has the potential to destruct everything in one's life, whether it be something short term or something in the long run. So like this, we practice we chant the holy name every morning throughout the day. We go on Harinam. So many things we do, and the byproduct of all this chanting, of all listening to all this Krishna Katha, is that the tendency of getting angry slowly dissipates within us, and that way we can control our anger. And unfortunately, if you're not able to control that anger, then what happens is Krishna's mercy moves further and further away from us, and this eventually leads to devotees distancing themselves away from us. And I'm sure we've all experienced that in devotee circles or circles outside of devotee association. And one might ask, why does anger arise? And the answer to that is anger arises from unmet expectations. We all come with so many desires. We all come with so many expectations. And throughout our childhood, throughout our youth, our adulthood, we are exposed to so many different environmental factors that create or incite more desires within us. And if these desires are unmet or not fulfilled, then it leads to anger. So in this case, in Dakṣa, he wanted Lord Shiva to offer him obeisances. And because Lord Shiva did not offer him obeisances, he just got angry. And he got so angry that he cursed Shiva and he just left the assembly. So like this, we always have to remember or take lessons from this pastime of Dakṣa and Shiva and try our best not to get incited by anger. And because the next section we can talk about is that anger, it's a source of insanity and destruction. So in this purport, in at least 2 or 3 sentences, Srila Prabhupada, it describes anger as like a temporary insanity. It's definitely not something permanent, but if it's not curbed, then it can have recurring instances over and over again. But it's something that comes and goes. It's like a temporary insanity. It's not permanent, it's temporary. And the Bhagavatam, there's many verses, and also in the Gita, we see that anger, it clouds our intelligence, or as Bhagavatam calls it, buddhi. It clouds our buddhi, and it makes us act irrationally in many, many situations. And also in the Bhagavad-gītā 2.63 and 62, it says that from anger, delusion arises, and from delusion comes loss of memory, which leads to the destruction of intelligence. And then the verse ends by saying that one goes back into the material pool again. Meaning that all our good qualities, all our spiritual progress that we do, it's hindered by anger. And this, if devotees, for example, if we don't practice patience and tolerance, actually, if by practicing tolerance and patience, we can prevent anger from arising within us and basically giving that to other people when it's not necessary or needed. So, of course, controlling anger or curbing anger is not something that's easy, but if it can be practiced through so many different processes, there's hearing, there's chanting, there's remembering Krishna, all these 9 limbs of bhakti, then anger can be curtailed to a certain extent. And of course, the more one keeps at it, then the more it can be controlled. And like I said, like Prabhupada says, it's a temporary insanity. So one emotional aspect of this whole anger is that we may feel like it's justified in the moment, like, oh, I should be angry because something didn't go my way, or because someone upset me or someone hurt me. But what happens is most of the time, after the moment has passed, we feel dejected, we feel morose, we feel kind of upset, and then we also feel shame and regret that, why did I get angry? Was it really that necessary that I got angry? And most of the time, we feel bad. So I'm pretty sure most of us have experienced this. I've experienced this numerous times. So it's very important that one recognizes the emotional toll that anger takes on both us and the person who we're imposing that anger on. And most of the time, it's not a pleasant scene, and it causes many relationship problems between the 2 parties involved. And it often also leaves a trail of damage and misery as well. So anger, if it can be curtailed or curbed off in interpersonal relationships, then we can easily have a more peaceful and harmonious situation between each other. And continuing on based on what Prabhupada said in the purport, we can also talk about lust, anger, and greed as being products or aspects of the mode of passion, or rajas. So in the 3rd chapter of the Gita, there's a verse where Arjuna is asking, what is the cause of all living entities to be acting in the way they act? And Krishna says, Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhavaha mahashano mahapapma vidyanam ihaverinam. It is lust only, O Arjuna, which is born with the contact of material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. Basically, when our desires are unfulfilled, frustration and anger arises. And this is the reason why lust, anger, and greed are so interconnected, so closely linked to each other, because when we have desires, we develop lust. We want to fulfill our desires. And when our desires are not fulfilled, then we get angry. And So like that, all these three things are connected at all times. But the root cause is lust. It's that never fulfilling lust that is the cause of anger, is the cause of greed. And eventually, if you're not able to control it, it degrades us. It degrades our personality, it degrades our qualities and everything. So like this, we can see that lust, anger, and greed, it's like a constant cycle and they're feeding into each other. It's not that lust by itself does something and then greed by itself does something and anger by itself does something. No, they're all related and they're all working together. So if we can somehow curtail our lust in the beginning, then it will lead to less greed. And if there is less greed, then there will be low amounts of anger. And if we're completely able to control that lust, then greed and anger are out of the question. So we have to, that's why Prabhupada and so in his purports and so many parts of our scriptures that we read, like Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, they talk um, um, about these material desires and controlling the material desires or purifying the material desires or spiritualizing them or by dovetailing them to Krishna. So that's if this process of dovetailing everything to Krishna, all our desires and everything, eventually we'll come to an understanding that, oh, maybe I want this, but Krishna doesn't want this from me. So what's the point in me getting upset about it? If it's not fulfilled, it's not fulfilled. Maybe Krishna doesn't want it right now, or maybe this is not something he wants, period. And then we can move on and understand that this was not meant to be, and then the chances of us getting upset and angry are much lower. So another reason we can talk about why Prabhupada uses the word passion is because um, lust and greed, they're byproducts of the mode of passion. But anger is like, it's towards the side of the ignorance. So mode of passion, when it's left unchecked, when we do not check our lust and greed, then that lust and greed, driven by the mode of passion, it drives us into ignorance. And through ignorance comes anger. Of course, it said that anger starts from passion, but if it's not curbed, if it's not curtailed, then it turns into ignorance, because anger is something, it's a byproduct of ignorance. It's a symptom of ignorance. Although it starts with passion, it's a byproduct of ignorance. And there's many pastimes in the Bhagavatam which talks about this. We have Dhruva Maharaj's scenario where, because one yaksha killed his brother Uttama, he decided to wipe out the entire race of the yakshas, and then Swayambhuva Manu had to come and tell him to curb his anger. But in this case of Dakṣa, although Brahma told him, like, stop, please control your anger, there's no need to get angry, he completely rejected Lord Brahmā. And when he did this, because he was so frustrated, because he felt so hopeless and he was in despair that Lord Śiva didn't offer him obeisances. He just ignored whatever Brahma told him. He ignored the presence of all the sages and the sadhus and everything, and just decided to curse Lord Śiva. So because Dakṣa identified himself so deeply with his position, he was frustrated because he wasn't offered an obeisance. And this is, for such an exalted personality, it's kind of embarrassing that they stooped down to such a low position and did all these offensive things, which is what the next section is talking about, Vaishnava Aparad. And there's so many examples in Bhagavatam where we see how one devotee or a non-devotee offends a devotee, and then the consequences of that. Can anyone name one such a famous example where someone offended a great devotee? Is any other example? Another one? You already said that. In a way, yeah. Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad, yeah. Yeah, that's a good example. Powerful example. Very famous, yes. Yes, yes, yes. That's a good one as well. Yeah. And there's also from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's Ramachandra Puri, who was the disciple of Madhavendra Puri and the godbrother of Ishwar Puri, who was a spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Is that yeah? Devananda Pandit, yes, yes. So Ramachandra Puri was so offensive that it got to a point where devotees didn't want to associate with him. And towards the end of the pastime, when he left Jagannath Puri, devotees celebrated. Like they celebrated his leaving. And so it's seen that when someone is so offensive to devotees, and when devotees are distancing themselves from you, one should take that as an indication that you're doing something wrong. But Ramachandra Puri was so blinded by his offenses that he didn't even realize that his devotees were leaving his association. And when he left, when I guess his quota of like Shishupal, when his quota of offenses were fulfilled, then he had to go. So and devotees celebrated. Like when devotees are not known to celebrate such things, they're known to celebrate festivals and appearances and disappearances. But to celebrate someone leaving from their association, that's rarely heard of. But in the case of Ramananda Puri, that's what happened. So we can learn from this that offenses towards devotees, it causes blockages in our spiritual path. It's like like we have so many experiences in New York City where we see when it rains a little bit, the city is flooded because the drains are clogged. So when we are flooding ourselves, our lives with all these offenses, then the spiritual potency of the spiritual blessings, they're blocked, and it doesn't. We can't fully get the mercy of Krishna and all the devotees and senior devotees and whatnot. And sure, one can get karmic reactions, but when you offend the devotee, you get more than karmic reactions. You lose mercy. You are distance from association somehow, like Ramananda Puri, for example, or worse, you can be killed by the Lord, like Hiranyakashipu was killed, or you can have the Sudarshan Chakra chasing you for a whole year and the entire 3 planetary systems. So like this, Daksha's offense against Lord Shiva had severe repercussions, and to the point where Lord Shiva killed him, chopped his head off, and he had to take another birth, and next birth that he took the head of a goat. So it's not something wonderful or something that you want to put on your resume. Oh, I took a second birth and I have a goat's head. It's not something to be proud of. And everything that Bhagavatam is a learning lesson, and such, especially topics that discuss offending Vaishnavas. And this is what anger and pride do. That's what they do. They're known to cause, if it's not controlled, like Prabhupada says in the end of the purport, it causes the mad elephant disease. The elephant goes into the water, takes a bath, comes out, and then puts sand all over its body, and it's dirty again. So like that, if we can't control anger, if we cannot control our pride, if we cannot respect each other, and if we cannot respect seniors and juniors both, then we keep committing offenses and offenses and offenses to the point where we might one day be shunned from society. Well, not society, from association. So there's many ways to repent for such offenses. But that's another topic to talk about. But let's talk about how, I know I brought it up briefly a few minutes ago, but the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, when Dhruva was angry, Swayambhuva Manu came down and gave him very clear instructions and requested him not to be angry. And Dhruva, because he's such a good devotee, he let it go. He let his anger go. He didn't, although he wanted to wipe out the entire Yaksha race, he decided to stop because he realized that what Swayambhuva Manu was saying, his grandfather was saying that actually made sense. So he stopped. But Dakṣa, because he's not on the level of pure devotees, he's a very expert karma kandi person. But he doesn't have that the feeling of devotion. He's not a pure devotee. He's not an exalted devotee. Which is why when Brahma told him to stop, he didn't listen to Brahma. That's his father, and he didn't listen. And Brahma is at a much higher level of authority or seniority than Swayambhuva Manu is. If Dhruva listened to to Swayambhuva Manu, for what to say about Lord Brahma, but Daksha is not listening to Brahma, that just shows how his that he completely misunderstood his position in society, his position in the lineage of Brahma. And one may ask, why was this happening with Dhruva Maharaj? Why was he angry, and how was he able to curb that anger? It's because he had he was a good pure devotee, and also he had taken Lord Vishnu had given him darshan of him and blessed him with his conch, and because of that, Dhruva was completely purified. Like Arjuna, for example, when he exemplified or when he displayed his moments of anger, it wasn't because he was unable to control his anger or that because he didn't know what was right or wrong. He directed his anger in certain situations in the proper manner. And same way, that's what Dhruva Maharaj did. But our dear Dakṣa, he wasn't able to do that. And which, especially to someone senior like Lord Brahmā, and that was the beginning of his spiritual decline. And the reason why it happened is because Dakṣa, he wasn't listening. So this whole concept of hearing, Shravanam doesn't mean listening to Krishna Katha and listening to lectures and listening to kirtans and that's it. It also means listening to one another, listening to what a devotee is saying, listening to our seniors, our juniors, just listening in general, because that whole culture of Shravanam is so very important. I know in many parts of Bhagavatam, of Bhagavad-gītā and Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada writes that chanting of the holy name will solve all problems in life, and chanting of the holy name is so important. But more important than that is Shravanam, to listen. Because if you're not listening, how will you chant? If you don't know something, how will you chant about it? How will you remember it? What to speak about offering obeisances? What to speak about of offering prayers to it, of offering worship and surrendering yourself to that or to that personality, whatever it may be. If you can't listen to somebody, how can you develop a relationship with that person? If you're just talking and not listening, or if you're inattentive in your dealings with devotees, then it creates a culture of distrust. It creates a culture of, for lack of a better word, animosity, where they can't trust you. Like, you're not listening to them, but you're only talking. So devotees, with devotees and non-devotees, it becomes very difficult to create an emotional relationship with that person. And if an emotional relationship cannot be created, then that spiritual relationship between that person will always be on a very low level. So a lot of the times, this distance between the two hearts happens because of not listening. So when someone, and which leads to anger. So when people are yelling at each other, when people are upset at each other, or they're speaking unkind or harsh words, it's because what they have in their heart, they're unable to communicate that to the other person. And that other person, because of this strained relationship, is unable to understand what's in the heart of the other person. And this is what's happening with Dakṣa and Lord Śiva. Dakṣa is unable to understand what's happening in Shiva's heart. It's not that Shiva didn't want to offer obeisances to his father-in-law, but because Shiva was in meditation, in samadhi of Krishna, he didn't feel it necessary that he had to offer obeisances, because when you have samadhi of Krishna, that means you have the whole universe, the entire cosmos in your mind. You have it, you're carrying it with you in your heart. So there's no need to offer obeisances at that point. And Dakṣa, because he didn't have a good relationship with Shiva, because he was under the impression that Shiva lives with such hobgoblins and ghosts and all these ridiculous low-born creatures and ghosts and whatnot, that he's not someone who's suited for my daughter. That was the impression that Dakṣa was under, and he always saw Shiva as that low caste person. Somehow got married to my daughter because she was attracted to him, or she was inspired by him. But he couldn't get past that. He couldn't understand the value of Lord Śiva, the importance of Lord Śiva, what he brings to the process of creation, maintenance, and dissolution. He didn't understand that Lord Śiva is none different than, and then he's an expansion of Lord Vishnu, and he was unable to recognize that importance of Lord Śiva, the tattva of Shiva. So like this, if we are unable to work on our internals to really understand who we are, how we see each other, pandita samadarshina, if you're unable to do that, especially over extended periods of time, then our spiritual progress, it becomes slower and slower and slower, and ultimately it comes to a point where you have to do something more about it, and because it plateaus, the progress plateaus. And there's so many instances where we criticize devotees or we get criticized by devotees, and there's always a learning lesson for us somehow or in some way, that whatever is happening to us is for our own benefit. So if someone criticizes us, for example, I heard this from a lecture by Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj in South Africa when we were there a few years ago, and he was saying how if devotees offend you, you can tell them, "Oh Prabhu, yes, I am so bad, but you don't even know that this is not just how bad I am. I can be worse. You haven't even seen anything. This is just the surface level stuff. But if I really show you how bad I am, then you'll be shocked. So whatever you're saying, I accept." And that was a very interesting way of putting it, because of all our inbuilt desires and whatnot, there's so much negativity, so many bad things that we have within us that we're suppressing and whatnot. So if you truly introspect and go deep within us, we can see how offensive we really are. So this culture of hearing, going back to the culture of hearing, how can one develop this culture of hearing? Hearing about Krishna, hearing about his devotees, hearing one another, hearing yourself. There's so much hearing to do. And that only comes with, there's a verse in the Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, where he talks about Syan Mahat, what is it? Huh? Syan Mahat, yeah, the beginning. Shushrushatadhanasya Vasudeva Katharuchihi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Purna Tirtha Nishevanat. So by serving great devotees, elevated devotees, for us we always, including the water bottle, we always have Srila Prabhupada to fall back on, even if we can't like any other devotee in ISKCON. If you can't see the value of devotees, we can always go to Prabhupada and listen to him, understand his mood, understand what his purpose was. So like that, if we can simply do Mahat Seva or perform services to qualified devotees, elevated devotees, to our peers, all these things, then Krishna will becomes pleased, and him residing in your heart, he will give you that taste for hearing. And once that the taste of hearing starts in your heart, then the other parts of bhakti will automatically appear, like kirtanam. You'll be able to chant more, then you'll be able to remember Krishna, you'll be able to offer him service, then you'll be able to offer him prayers, do worship on the altar, whatnot, become his friend, servant, and ultimately one day you'll be able to surrender to him. But if we don't have this culture of hearing, if we don't develop this attitude of hearing within us and within amongst ourselves, then there's our whole progress in bhakti will be very, very slow, and we might experience instances like Dakṣa or Dhruva Maharaj. Of course, they're on two different levels, but still the lessons are still the same. So if amongst devotees, if they can foster this relationship where they feel loved and cared for, then they will ignite a desire to absorb each other, or not each other, absorb oneself in hearing more about Krishna, or hearing each other out and really understanding what the other person is trying to say. So that all starts with simply listening. It's whether we talk about listening in the material world or listening in spiritual context. We always have to listen. For any relationship to work properly, we have to listen. There's no relationship that works where one person just talks, and the other person is not listening. That's not a relationship. And I'm pretty sure that we have examples of all of this in our personal lives, where we've had people or devotees who haven't listened to us, who haven't heard us, and we feel neglected, and we felt a certain type of way, upset, anger, and whatnot. So like this, because Dakṣa did not listen to his seniors, he became angry, he became bewildered, and he lost all his intelligence. And that's why he decided to leave the arena. And eventually, when Sati came back to spend time with him, he got offended. He got more offended, and he yelled at her. Again, he yelled. And then that's when Sati gave up her body, and then Shiva had to, in order to teach him a lesson, he killed him. So that's how the pastimes will unfold later on. And I think there's more I can talk about, but I think this is enough for today. It's almost 9 o'clock. So yeah, one last thing I want to say is that one of the essences of bhakti is to hear. And if we really hear each other, if we really hear from, of course, not hear anyone. There's people we're not supposed to hear from, like Mayavadis or non-devotees or people who are against any kind of religion. We're not supposed to really hear from them. So if we can develop this attitude of hearing, then automatically we'll develop this habit of glorifying others, glorifying Krishna, glorifying soul movement, and so much more. So when we glorify others, it takes away from our own shortcomings, and it magnifies the positive attributes of other people, and this eventually is what brings true joy of that is talked about in the scriptures. That ananda buddhi vardhanam. That's how it comes through humility, through proper hearing, and one cannot. That humility and hearing is not happening simultaneously, then one will not be able to chant kirtanam. That glorification will not happen properly. So, yeah, these are my thoughts on this verse. If there's any corrections or concerns, please let me know. Any questions? Yes, Prabhu. Mm. Yeah. 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 In the modern times. Well, there was, sorry, Mr. Nair. Yeah, yeah. There you go. That's one example. Mr. Nair in Juhu. Yeah, and there's all like, yeah, when you said Hanuman, he got angry, but then he used that anger for service. That's ultimately what we need to do with anger, and but first it requires to be curbed. You have to control it first, and then only you can channel it properly. You can't channel something that you don't have control over. Hanuman, because he was such a pure devotee of Lord Ram, he was able to do that. Same with Dhruva, because he was he had taken darshan of Lord Vishnu. He personally came after 6 months and blessed him. So Dhruva was able to control that anger. Ambarish Maharaj, he didn't get offended when Durvasa cursed him. He was able to control that anger, and he didn't direct the anger anywhere. He just controlled it and didn't just took the curse of Durvasa as it is, and Krishna protected him. There's also pastimes of in the Mahabharata. There's so many instances where Bhima gets angry, Arjuna gets angry, but Yudhishthira is always like, chill, relax. This is the right way to do it. Follow dharma and virtue to control anger and guide his brothers to various situations in their 13 years of exile and whatnot. Bhima, for example, he also controls his anger many times. Balaram controlled his anger for a while until he killed so many. He killed the Vivṛddha, the gorilla, because the gorilla kept punching him, throwing rocks at him, trees at him, and then at some point Balaram was like, okay, enough. One punch, that's it, done. Not even a punch. It was like on the collarbone. It was a 2 fingers thing on the collarbone, and the gorilla died. So there's so many pastimes, but surprisingly, it's not coming to mind. So many pastimes. Well, basically, the point is that it has to be controlled first before you can channel it properly. Otherwise, it can go everywhere because it's insatiable. There's no limit. Yes. Hmm. Hmm. that was one of the sections here, but because of time constraints. But that comes down to hearing. If you don't have the attitude of hearing, no matter who tells you what, if you don't want to listen, then what's the point? They'll keep saying it, you'll just ignore them, and it'll just be offenses one after another. So hearing, it all goes back to hearing, which is, of course, how you can take guidance from seniors and other exalted people. Yes, Prabhu. It works, it works. It is possible to become a pure devotee, even though we have anger, lust, and greed, but it has to be directed to the proper side. Ankulasya sankalpa. You have to direct it towards Krishna, towards devotional service. Envy is the only thing that you cannot direct this way or that way. It's horrible. But lust, anger, greed, you can through this whole process of listening to Shravanam, you develop taste for hearing and remembering and service and worshiping and prayers and this, and so eventually you'll be able to surrender yourself one day to this process. Right now we're trying to surrender, but one day you'll be able to surrender. And once you get to that point, Atma Nivedanam, then you'll be able to engage your lust, your anger, and your greed much easier, in a much suitable manner, in a much smoother manner towards devotional service. Right now, nowadays, in the moment, given our conditional state, we get angry first, then we do something, and then we think, oh, what did I do? Okay, that's probably not what I should do. But with this practice of devotional service through proper hearing, you'll get to a point one day where you won't get angry so fast. You'll be able to control it completely. Even though internally you might be angry, but you won't show external symptoms. And then you'll be able to channel it properly. You'll be able to see that, yes, whatever this person is saying, maybe although it's offensive, although he's criticizing me, I don't want to hear what he's saying. No problem. Let him say it. I'll channel it in the proper ways. I'll listen to him, although I don't have to say anything to him. I'll listen to what he's saying, and then I'll channel it properly. So it's definitely possible. It just needs time. Can't just expect an expedited process overnight. It's possible if you're sincere, but generally for most of us, it takes time. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Yeah. Head didn't fly off, he just died. There's nothing that mentioned about his head flying off, but it was something small. It was like a backhand slap kind of thing, and he just died. See, Krishna, pure devotees, like Prabhupada's anger, Krishna's anger, there are different levels of anger. There's like transcendental anger. They're angry and they're being happy, they're being pleased. It's the same thing because they want your ultimate benefit. So Krishna, when he kills or when he protects, it's the same thing. The result is the same. It's not that you get some other result if Krishna's happy or if Krishna's angry at you. All these demons that Krishna killed in Vrindavan, in Mathura, in Dwarka, they all attain that same result. They all attain some form of liberation. Some were permanent, some weren't, like Putana. Krishna was furious that she came to kill him. But because she came in the form of a mother or nurse, he fulfilled her desires, and then gave her an eternal place in Golok Vrindavan as a nurse, as a mother, as a dhatri. So like that, Krishna's anger is completely transcendental. It's not born of passion. It's beyond these three modes. So when he's angry, it's the same as blessings. Like Nrsimhadev, for example, took everything out of Hiranyakashipu and had him on his lap, put his intestines around his neck as a garland, and he was fuming. But when Prahlad Maharaj approached him at the request of all the Brahma and whatnot, in a moment, Nrsimhadev's anger was dissipated, gone. So it's not that he was holding on to anger, like when is he going to offer me prayers? No, it was just transcendental anger because he was furious how Hiranyakashipu could be so antagonistic towards him when he's residing in his heart. I'm sitting in his heart, but why does he not recognize who I am? Why is he being so neglectful towards my devotee. He was mad at Hiranyakashipu because he was treating Prahlad in such a way. Not because he didn't recognize Krishna as a supreme personality of Godhead. He doesn't care. He could care less. But when you offend his devotees, when you hurt his devotees, that's when he gets upset. That's when most likely will kill you. Yes, Krishna Kripa Prabhu. But there is anger in God also. Somebody says, why should God be angry? No, God, there is anger. Everything is there in God. Otherwise, where anger comes from? It is the source of everything. Absolute. Anger also is good. That is the difference. When we become angry, there is no mercy. It's far away from it. God, Krishna, is absolute. Either he is angry or he is merciful. That's why he's God. And that's why we're dogs. So, yeah. Any other questions? Going once, twice, thrice. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Lord Śiva ki.
Prabhavishnu Dāsa ki.
Can someone please stop the recording so I can get up?